Miami, Florida, October 14, 2010. The humid October air hung heavy over Coral Gables that Thursday evening, carrying with it the scent of jasmine from the manicured gardens that lined Andalusia Avenue. Detective Marcus Webb sat in his unmarked sedan, watching the red and blue lights dance across the pristine white facade of 4237 Andalusia, a modest but well-maintained two-story home that stood as a testament to the American dream its owners had chased from Venezuela 15 years earlier. It was 11:47 p.m. when Webb received the call. Now, at 12:15 a.m. on Friday morning, he stood at the threshold of what would become Miami's most haunting unsolved case. "Detective Webb," Officer Rodriguez approached, his young face pale in the porch light. "You're going to want to see this. It's weird, sir." Webb had been with Miami-Dade PD for 23 years. He'd seen weird. Weird was a relative term in a city where the bizarre became routine. But as he stepped through the unlocked front door, unlocked from the inside, Rodriguez emphasized, even his seasoned instincts told him this was different. The scene before him looked like a moment frozen in time, as if someone had pressed pause on an ordinary family evening. The living room television flickered with the late-night news, volume low but audible. A half-finished crossword puzzle lay on the coffee table, pen resting in the fold. Children's backpacks sat neatly by the stairs, homework visible through the open zippers. "Kitchen's this way," Rodriguez said, leading Webb through the immaculate home. The dining room stopped Webb cold. 4 place settings arranged with care, ceramic plates with hand-painted sunflowers, silverware aligned precisely, cloth napkins folded into triangles. Food remained on 3 of the plates. Arroz con pollo, black beans, fried plantains. The portions were barely touched, as if the family had been interrupted mid-meal. A 4th plate sat empty except for a fork, placed diagonally across it. "Who called it in?" Webb asked, pulling out his notebook. "Neighbor across the street. Patricia Donovan, 62, retired teacher. Says she saw the Morales family come home around 6:30 p.m. like usual." Roberto waved to her. She noticed their lights on until about 9 p.m., then they went dark except for that TV glow. Around 11 p.m., she heard their dog barking continuously. "Unusual," she says. "The dog, a golden retriever named Dorado, is still in the backyard. Food and water bowls full. Animals going crazy out there." Webb moved closer to the table, careful not to disturb anything. The food was room temperature, but not spoiled. Recent. Very recent. He noticed a wine bottle, half empty, and 2 glasses with red wine residue. The parents had been drinking, celebrating something perhaps, or just unwinding after a long day. "Where are the family members?" Webb asked, though he knew the answer. "That's just it, detective. They're gone. All 4 of them. Roberto Morales, 46. Elena Morales, 43. Daughter Isabella, 17. Son Marco, 14. Vanished." Webb walked through the rest of the first floor. Everything in its place. No signs of struggle. No overturned furniture, no broken glass. The back door leading to the small yard was locked from the inside, deadbolt engaged. Same with the front door. Rodriguez had to use the spare key the neighbor provided to enter. "Upstairs?" Webb asked. Rodriguez led him up the carpeted staircase. Family photos lined the wall. Christmas portraits, beach vacations, graduation ceremonies. Roberto Morales had a kind face, weathered by hard work, but warm. Elena's smile reached her eyes in every picture. The children looked like typical American teenagers, caught between 2 cultures, 2 identities. The master bedroom was equally undisturbed, bed made with military precision. Elena's jewelry box sat open on the dresser, inexpensive but cherished pieces visible inside. Roberto's wallet lay on the nightstand with $340 in cash, credit cards intact. Car keys hung on a hook by the door. "Their vehicles?" Webb asked. "Both in the garage. 2006 Honda Accord and a 2008 Toyota Camry. Neither has been moved." Isabella's room showcased a bright personality. University of Miami pennants, concert posters, photographs of friends pinned to a corkboard. Her laptop sat closed on her desk. Marco's room reflected a teenage boy's interests. Video game posters, basketball trophies, a guitar leaning against the wall. Everything normal. Everything wrong. Webb returned to the dining room, studying the scene with the intensity that had made him one of the department's best investigators. Something about the empty plate nagged at him. "Rodriguez, get forensics here immediately. I want photographs of everything, and I mean everything, before anyone touches a single item. Contact the family's employer, friends, relatives. I want to know who they spoke to today, where they went, what they did, and find out who else has keys to this house." "Yes, sir." "Detective, what do you think happened?" Webb stared at the half-eaten meals, the cooling food, the frozen tableau of interrupted domesticity. In his experience, when a family disappeared from a locked house with no signs of struggle, you were usually looking at one of three scenarios: witness protection gone wrong, premeditated flight from danger, or something far more sinister. "I think," Webb said slowly, "that the Morales family had dinner with someone they trusted, someone who sat in that fourth chair, and whatever happened next happened fast." By 3 a.m., the Morales home had transformed into a crime scene, though officially, no crime had yet been established. Forensic teams combed through every room while Webb interviewed Patricia Donovan in her living room across the street. "They were such good people," Patricia said, wringing her hands. "Roberto worked 2 jobs, construction during the day, security at night. Elena cleaned houses but was studying to be a nursing assistant. Those kids were polite, respectful. Marco would help me with my groceries without being asked." "Did you see anyone visit the house today?" Webb asked. Patricia thought carefully. "The mailman came around 2 p.m. like always. There was a white van parked on the street around 4 p.m. Looked like a contractor's vehicle, but I didn't see any work being done. And," she paused, "Daniel stopped by around 6 p.m. just before the family got home." Webb's pen stopped. "Daniel? Daniel Torres. He's been friends with Roberto for years. They met at church, I think. He's over there often. Helps Roberto with home repairs, joins them for dinner sometimes. Really nice young man, always polite." "Did you see him leave?" "No, actually. His car was still there when I went inside to make dinner around 6:30, a blue Ford Focus. But it was gone when I looked out later, maybe 7:30 or so." Webb made a note with 3 underlines. "Describe Daniel Torres for me. Early 30s, I'd guess. Dark hair, average height, fit. Works in IT or computers or something technical. Quiet type. Roberto called him like a brother." Elena would joke that Daniel was their 5th family member. The interview continued for another 30 minutes, but Patricia had little else to offer. She'd seen nothing unusual, heard nothing alarming, until the dog's incessant barking prompted her to call the police. Back at the house, Webb found the forensic lead, Dr. Sarah Chen, examining the dining room with a magnifying lens. "Preliminary thoughts?" Webb asked. "No blood, no defensive wounds on the furniture, no signs of forced entry or exit. The food was consumed approximately 4 to 5 hours ago, based on temperature and composition. Wine was poured around the same time. There are 4 sets of fingerprints on the dishes, likely the family members. But that 4th plate," she pointed with a gloved finger, "clean except for the fork placement. Someone sat there but didn't eat, or cleared their own plate. Can you pull prints from the fork?" "Already bagged it. We'll process everything, but Detective, this doesn't look like a crime scene. It looks like a family that simply walked away from dinner. But families didn't just walk away, not with their wallets, keys, and cars left behind. Not with doors locked from the inside." Webb stepped outside into the muggy night air. The neighborhood was awakening to the commotion, lights flickering on in surrounding homes, curious faces peering through windows. Coral Gables was an affluent area, predominantly white and Cuban American, where Venezuelan immigrants like the Morales family worked hard to belong. His phone buzzed. A text from Rodriguez, found Roberto's employer. He never showed up for his night shift at the warehouse. First time in 8 years he's missed work without calling. Webb dialed his partner, Detective Lisa Reeves, waking her from sleep. "We've got a situation," he said, watching forensic photographers document every angle of the property. "I need you to run a full background on Daniel Torres. Male, early 30s, drives a blue Ford Focus, works in IT, friend of the family. And Lisa, make it priority 1. You think he's involved?" Webb looked back at the house, at the warm glow of investigation lights spilling from the windows, at the home that had been filled with life just hours ago, and now stood empty, echoing with absence. "I think he was the last person to see them alive, and I want to know why he was here, why he left, and where the hell he is now." As dawn broke over Miami, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, Detective Marcus Webb stood on the lawn of 4237 Andalusia Avenue and felt the weight of what he didn't yet know, that this case would define his career, haunt his dreams, and remain unsolved for 14 years, until renovation work in an abandoned property would finally expose a truth more devastating than anyone could have imagined. The Morales family had vanished, but the evidence they left behind was screaming a story no one was yet listening to hear. Miami, Florida, October 15, 2010. The morning sun bore down mercilessly on Miami-Dade Police Headquarters as Detective Marcus Webb entered the bullpen at 7 a.m., running on 2 hours of sleep and 4 cups of gas station coffee. His desk was already covered with preliminary reports, witness statements, and a growing file on the Morales family that seemed to raise more questions than answers. Detective Lisa Reeves looked up from her computer, her dark eyes reflecting the blue glow of the screen. At 34, she was 12 years Webb's junior, but sharp as a tack, the kind of investigator who could spot a lie from across the room and remember every detail of a case from 5 years prior. Daniel Torres, she said without preamble, spinning her monitor toward Webb. 32 years old, born in Miami to Cuban immigrants. Bachelor's degree in computer science from Florida International University. Works as a systems analyst for Meridian Tech Solutions in Brickell. Clean record, not even a parking ticket. Pays his taxes. Volunteers at a community center in Little Havana. Attends St. Catherine's Catholic Church in Coral Gables. Same church as the Morales family. Webb studied the driver's license photo on the screen. Daniel Torres had an unremarkable face, the kind that could disappear in a crowd. Dark hair neatly trimmed, brown eyes, a neutral expression that revealed nothing. Average in every measurable way, which in Webb's experience often meant someone who could move through the world unnoticed. Social media, Webb asked. Minimal presence. Facebook account with privacy settings locked down tight. Last public post was 3 months ago. A photo at a Marlins game with Roberto Morales. The caption reads, "Brothers from different mothers. Best friend a guy could ask for." 43 likes, mostly from people in their church community. Webb leaned closer, examining the photo. Roberto had his arm around Daniel's shoulders, both men grinning at the camera, beers in hand. They looked genuinely happy, comfortable with each other. The image of friendship that Patricia Donovan had described. "What about his residence?" Webb asked. "Apartment in Kendall. 1 bedroom, been there for 4 years. Rent paid on time every month. Neighbors describe him as quiet, keeps to himself. Building manager says he's never had a complaint." "Where is he now?" Reeves's expression darkened. "That's the problem. His apartment is empty, I mean completely empty. No furniture, no personal items, nothing. Landlord let us in an hour ago. Place looks like it's been professionally cleaned. Not a fingerprint, not a hair, not a scrap of paper. Even the refrigerator is spotless and unplugged." Webb felt his pulse quicken. When did he move out? That's the thing. He didn't officially move out. Lease doesn't expire until December. Manager says he saw Daniel 2 days ago, Wednesday afternoon, carrying boxes to his car. Said Daniel told him his company was transferring him to Atlanta, and he'd handle the lease termination paperwork later. 2 days before the Morales family disappeared, Webb said slowly. "What about his workplace?" "Called in sick yesterday, Thursday. Said he had food poisoning. HR confirmed he requested 2 weeks of personal leave starting today, Friday. He submitted the request a week ago. They approved it. Guy hasn't taken a vacation in 2 years. Webb stood, pacing the narrow space between their desks. The bullpen hummed with morning activity around them. Phones ringing, keyboards clattering, detectives arguing over case assignments. But Webb's focus had narrowed to a laser point. He planned this, Webb said. He knew he was disappearing. The question is why, and what does it have to do with the Morales family? Reeves pulled up another document. "I requested his phone records. Subpoena won't come through until Monday at the earliest, but I got his cell number from his employer. I've been calling it every 30 minutes since 5 a.m. Goes straight to voicemail. Generic carrier message, not personalized. Credit cards? Last transaction was Wednesday at 3:47 p.m. Gas station in Homestead filled up his tank. Paid cash for a sandwich and bottled water. Since then, nothing. No ATM withdrawals, no purchases, no activity." Webb moved to the evidence board they'd set up in the corner conference room. Photos of the Morales family smiled from the corkboard. School pictures, family portraits, candid shots. In the center, he pinned Daniel Torres' driver's license photo, then drew a red line connecting him to each family member. "Walk me through what we know about their relationship," Webb said. Reeves consulted her notes. "Daniel and Roberto met 6 years ago at St. Catherine's during a men's fellowship group. Roberto was new to the church, struggling with English, working long hours. Daniel spoke fluent Spanish. His parents were from Cuba, remember, and took Roberto under his wing. Helped him navigate job applications, practice English, understand American culture. So Roberto owed him," Webb observed. "More than that, According to the church pastor, Father Miguel Castillo, I spoke with him this morning, Daniel became part of the family. Weekly dinners, birthday celebrations, holidays. Elena treated him like a brother. The kids called him Tio Daniel, Uncle Daniel. Webb stared at the photos. In his experience, this level of integration meant one of two things: genuine familial bond or something darker. Obsession could masquerade as devotion. Control could hide behind helpfulness. What about romantic involvement? Webb asked. Any indication Daniel had feelings for Elena? I asked Father Castillo the same thing. He seemed shocked by the suggestion, said Daniel was always appropriate, respectful. But, Reeves hesitated, he did mention that Daniel never seemed to date anyone. No girlfriends, no romantic interests that anyone knew about. Father said he sometimes worried Daniel was lonely. Webb's phone rang, the forensics lab. He put it on speaker. Detective Webb, it's Chen. Got preliminary results from the house, those fingerprints on the fourth plate's fork. They don't match anyone in the family. We're running them through AFIS now, but I can tell you they're clean, well-defined. Someone sat at that table, touched that fork, and either didn't eat or removed their plate before leaving. What about the rest of the house? Webb asked. That's where it gets interesting. We found trace amounts of bleach in the kitchen sink, fresh within the last 24 hours. Someone cleaned something thoroughly. Also, there's a pattern in the carpet fibers near the back door. Looks like something heavy was dragged across the floor, but the marks are faint, almost imperceptible. If someone tried to erase them, they did a good job. Webb's mind raced. Bleach meant contamination control, evidence destruction. Drag marks meant something or someone had been moved. The family's computers and phones? He asked. All accounted for and collected. Tech team is working on them now. One oddity, though. Isabella's laptop has remote access software installed. Team viewer, professionally configured. IT department says it allows someone to control the computer from another location. Who installed it? We're checking the logs, but given that Daniel Torres works in IT, he'd be our prime suspect. Father mentioned Daniel helped the family set up their home network and troubleshoot computer problems. Webb thanked Chen and ended the call. He looked at Reeves, saw his own suspicions reflected in her face. He had access, Reeves said. Physical access to the house, digital access to their computers. He knew their schedules, their habits, their vulnerabilities. If he wanted to hurt them, he had every opportunity. But why? Webb challenged, playing devil's advocate. By all accounts, he loved this family. They trusted him. What's the motive? Maybe that's exactly it, Reeves suggested. Love turned into obsession. Trust turned into entitlement. We've seen it before. The helpful friend who feels unappreciated. The surrogate family member who wants to be more than that. Rejection, perceived or real, can trigger violence. Webb's phone buzzed with a text from Rodriguez, canvassing neighborhood. Woman 2 blocks over says she saw a blue Ford Focus driving slowly past the Morales house multiple times Wednesday evening. Thought it was weird because it kept circling the block. Another piece falling into place. Daniel Torres had been watching the house, studying patterns, preparing. I want an APB out on Daniel Torres and his vehicle, Webb ordered. Approach with caution. Consider him a person of interest in a potential abduction. Contact Atlanta PD. Verify whether he actually has a job transfer. Check bus stations, airports, rental car companies. And get me a warrant for his financial records. If he's running, he needs money. Reeves was already typing, her fingers flying across the keyboard. On it. What about the media? This is going to blow up, Marcus. Immigrant family vanishes from locked house. It's going to be everywhere by noon. Webb knew she was right. The press would descend like vultures, and with them would come pressure from the brass, demands for answers, speculation that could taint the investigation. But media attention also meant witnesses, tips, the possibility that someone had seen something crucial. Schedule a press conference for 2 p.m., Webb decided. We control the narrative before it controls us. And Lisa, make sure Daniel Torres's photo is front and center. Someone in this city knows where he is. By early afternoon, the investigation had expanded exponentially. Webb stood in the crowded conference room, surrounded by task force members hastily assembled from various units. Missing persons, homicide, major crimes. Everyone wanted a piece of this case. Lieutenant Sarah Morrison, a stern woman with silver hair and a reputation for running tight ships, addressed the room. This is now a Priority 1 investigation. 4 missing persons, including 2 minors, possible abduction. Person of interest in the wind. The chief wants daily updates, and the media is already calling this the most mysterious disappearance in Miami history. No pressure, people. Webb briefed the team on everything they'd learned. The timeline, the evidence, Daniel Torres' sudden disappearance, the unsettling details that painted a picture of premeditation. We're treating this as an abduction until proven otherwise, Webb concluded. Daniel Torres had means, motive, and opportunity. We find him. We find answers. A young detective from the tech unit raised his hand. Sir, we've been analyzing the remote access logs from Isabella's laptop. Someone logged in remotely 17 times over the past 3 months, always late at night when the family would be asleep. They accessed her camera and microphone. The room fell silent. Webb felt sick. He was watching them, Reeves said quietly. In their own home, he was watching them. There's more, the tech detective continued. We found deleted browser history on Roberto's computer. Someone searched for information about crossing the Mexican border, obtaining fake identification, and wire transfer services to Venezuela. The searches were made last Tuesday, 3 days before the disappearance. Was Roberto planning to flee? Morrison asked. Webb shook his head slowly, instinct telling him otherwise. Or someone wanted us to think he was. If you're planning to disappear, you don't leave dinner on the table. You don't leave your wallet and car keys behind. This is staging. His phone rang again, a number he didn't recognize. He stepped into the hallway to answer. Detective Webb? The voice was male, heavily accented, trembling with emotion. My name is Carlos Morales. Roberto is my brother. I'm calling from Caracas. Please, please tell me this isn't true. Tell me my brother's family is alive. Webb closed his eyes, wishing he could offer comfort, knowing he couldn't lie. Mr. Morales, I'm doing everything possible to find your brother and his family. When did you last speak with Roberto? Wednesday night. He called me around 10 p.m. his time. He sounded different, worried. He said if anything happened to him, I should tell the police about Daniel. Webb's hand tightened on the phone. What about Daniel? He said Daniel was changing, becoming possessive, angry when Roberto couldn't spend time with him. Roberto tried to create distance, told Daniel he needed to focus more on his family. Daniel didn't take it well. Roberto said Daniel told him, "You're all I have. Without you, I have nothing." It frightened Roberto, the intensity of it. Did Roberto mention any specific threats? No threats, but he said Elena was uncomfortable too. Daniel had been showing up unannounced, staying too long, asking too many personal questions. They were planning to have a serious conversation with him, to set boundaries. That was going to be Thursday night at dinner. Thursday night, the night they disappeared. Mr. Morales, I need you to send me any emails, texts, or messages between your brother and Daniel Torres. Everything you have. I'll send them right away. Detective, my brother was a good man. He came to America for a better life for his children. He worked so hard. Please find them, please. Webb promised to do everything in his power, then ended the call. He stood in the fluorescent-lit hallway, feeling the weight of 4 lives depending on decisions he hadn't yet made, clues he hadn't yet found. Reeves emerged from the conference room. Press conference in 20 minutes, you ready? Webb wasn't ready. He wasn't close to ready. But he nodded anyway because, ready or not, the clock was ticking. Every hour that passed decreased the likelihood of finding the Morales family alive, if they were still alive at all. As they walked toward the media room, Webb's mind kept returning to one detail, the empty 4th plate. Daniel Torres had sat at that table, had been part of that final meal, had shared that space with people who trusted him completely, and then he'd made them disappear. The question wasn't just where they'd gone, it was whether they'd ever be found, and what horrors the answers might reveal. Outside, Miami's relentless sun beat down on a city that didn't yet know it was witnessing the beginning of its most haunting mystery, one that would take 14 years and an abandoned property's dark secret to finally solve. But for now, Detective Marcus Webb had only questions, a missing family, and a ghost named Daniel Torres who'd vanished into thin air. Miami, Florida, October 16, 2010. The press conference had been a media circus. By Saturday morning, every major news outlet from CNN to Univision was running the story. Family of 4 vanishes from locked Miami home. Friends sought for questioning. Daniel Torres' driver's license photo stared out from television screens across South Florida, his unremarkable face now the focus of a manhunt spanning multiple states. Detective Marcus Webb sat in his home office at 6 a.m., unable to sleep, surrounded by case files that had consumed the past 36 hours of his life. His wife, Jennifer, had given up trying to coax him to bed around 3 a.m., leaving a sandwich and coffee on his desk before retreating to their bedroom, with a concerned kiss on his forehead. The emails from Carlos Morales had arrived overnight, dozens of exchanges between Roberto and Daniel spanning the past 6 months. Webb read them with growing unease, watching the slow deterioration of what had once been a solid friendship. March 2010, Roberto to Daniel. Brother, thank you for helping Marco with his math homework. Elena made your favorite empanadas. Come for dinner Sunday? April 2010, Daniel to Roberto. Why didn't you invite me to Isabella's birthday party? I thought I was family. May 2010, Roberto to Daniel. Of course you're family, but it was just immediate relatives this time. No offense meant, hermano. June 2010, Daniel to Roberto. I drove by your house last night, saw cars I didn't recognize. You're having people over and not inviting me anymore? July 2010, Roberto to Daniel. Daniel, you need to understand we love you, but Elena and I need some space. You can't just show up without calling, it makes her uncomfortable. August 2010, Daniel to Roberto. Uncomfortable? I've been nothing but good to your family. I helped you when you had nothing. This is how you repay me? September 2010, Roberto to Daniel. This isn't about repayment. This is about healthy boundaries. Please respect that. October 2010, Daniel to Roberto. You're making a mistake, Roberto. You don't push away the people who really care about you. You'll regret this. The final email had been sent on October 13th, the day before the family disappeared. Webb stared at that last line. You'll regret this. A threat? A warning? Or the desperate words of someone who felt their world crumbling? His phone rang. Reeves, despite the early hour. Tell me you've got something good, Webb answered. Atlanta PD confirmed what we suspected. No Daniel Torres employed by any tech company there. No job transfer, no apartment rental, nothing. The story was complete fiction. So where the hell is he? That's the interesting part. We pulled his financial records. Judge expedited the warrant given the circumstances. Daniel's been liquidating assets for the past month. Sold his car to a used dealership on October 12th for $4,800 cash. Closed his savings account on October 13th. Withdrew $23,000. Credit cards paid off and canceled. He's been systematically erasing his financial footprint. Webb felt the familiar tingle that came with breaking cases. The sense that disparate pieces were finally forming a coherent picture. He's been planning this for weeks, maybe longer. This wasn't impulsive. There's more, Reeves continued. Remember that white contractor van Patricia Donovan saw on Andalusia Avenue the day of the disappearance? We pulled traffic camera footage from the surrounding blocks. The van appears multiple times over the past 2 weeks, always parking within view of the Morales house, never for more than 20 minutes at a time. Did you get plates? Partial. Florida tags, but the numbers are obscured, deliberately looks like. Tech team is working on enhancement, but it's going to take time. However, we did get a decent shot of the driver entering and exiting the van. Male, dark hair, average build, wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses. Could be Torres. Could be. We're running facial recognition, but the image quality isn't great. Marcus, this guy was conducting surveillance. Professional level surveillance. For someone who works in IT, he's showing some serious operational security awareness. Webb's mind raced through the implications. Daniel Torres wasn't just a scorned friend acting out of passion. This was calculated, methodical, planned with disturbing precision, which meant whatever happened to the Morales family, Daniel had thought it through, prepared for it, anticipated consequences. What about the warrant for his apartment? Webb asked. Forensics finished processing it overnight. You're not going to believe this. They found traces of luminol reactive substance in the bathroom drain. Someone tried to clean blood out of that sink. And recently, also found receipt fragments in the dumpster behind the building. Took them to the lab for reconstruction. How long until we know what the receipts say? Couple of hours. But Marcus, one fragment was clearly visible. Home Depot, and a date, October 11th. 3 days before the disappearance. Home Depot. Webb's stomach dropped. Pull records for every Home Depot in Miami-Dade. I want to know what Daniel Torres purchased. Already on it, I'll call you back when I have something. Webb ended the call and returned to the emails, reading between the lines of Roberto's increasingly desperate attempts to maintain boundaries, while not completely severing a relationship that had once meant so much. The progression was textbook. Attachment disorder manifesting as possessive behavior, rejection triggering escalation, friendship morphing into obsession. His phone buzzed with a text from Rodriguez. Canvas team found something. Meet at the office ASAP. By 8 a.m., the task force had reconvened in the conference room. Rodriguez stood at the evidence board looking like he'd aged 5 years and 2 days. "We've been interviewing everyone in the neighborhood," Rodriguez began, showing them photos of Daniel Torres, asking about unusual activity. Most people recognized him. He'd been coming to the Morales house for years, so his presence wasn't notable. But one person, a teenager named Kyle Henderson, who lives 3 houses down, had something interesting to say. Rodriguez pulled up a photo on the projection screen, a surveillance camera image from a neighbor's Ring doorbell, time-stamped October 14th, 8:47 p.m. This was taken about 3 hours after the Morales family would have finished dinner. You can see a figure walking away from their house, moving quickly, head down. Watch the gait, the body language. This person is in a hurry, possibly agitated. Webb studied the grainy footage. The figure wore dark clothing, hands shoved in pockets, face obscured by the angle and poor lighting. But the build, the height, the general silhouette, consistent with Daniel Torres. Kyle says he was taking out the trash when he saw this person practically jogging down the sidewalk. Thought it was weird because people don't usually move that fast in the neighborhood at night unless they're running. He remembers checking the time because he was worried he'd miss his favorite TV show, 8:45 p.m. "Did Kyle see where this person went?" Webb asked. "Lost sight of him at the corner of Andalusia and Granada. But here's where it gets interesting. Kyle also saw a white van parked on Granada earlier that evening around 7:30 p.m. Said it stood out because the street is residential. No commercial vehicles usually park there overnight." Reeves leaned forward. "So the timeline could be, Daniel arrives at the house around 6 p.m. when the family gets home, stays for dinner, something goes wrong during or after the meal, and by 8:45 p.m. he's fleeing on foot toward a white van he'd staged as a getaway vehicle. What happened between dinner and 8:45? Morrison asked, voicing the question haunting everyone in the room. Webb's phone rang. Dr. Chen from Forensics. "Detective, we've reconstructed enough of those receipts from Daniel's apartment to get a picture of his purchases. On October 11th at Home Depot, he bought heavy-duty trash bags, duct tape, rope, a shovel, lime, bleach, and tarps. Paid cash." The room fell silent. Those weren't the purchases of someone planning to move apartments. Those were the tools of someone planning to dispose of evidence. Bodies. "Dear God," Morrison whispered. Webb felt the case shift from missing persons to something far darker. "Dr. Chen, what about the blood in the drain? Type O positive. Matches Roberto Morales' blood type according to his medical records. We're running DNA confirmation, but it'll take a few days." Webb looked around the room at faces reflecting the same grim realization. They weren't looking for missing people anymore. They were looking for graves. "All right, people," Morrison said. Her voice hardened by years of dealing with the worst humanity had to offer. "We shift to homicide protocols. I want cadaver dogs, ground-penetrating radar, every tool we have. Where would someone dispose of 4 bodies in Miami?" Detective James Martinez from the homicide unit stepped forward. He was a 20-year veteran with a face that had seen too much death. Given the timeline, everything happening Thursday night, he wouldn't have had time to go far. Bodies are heavy, disposal takes time, and he was working alone, as far as we know. "I'd focus on areas within a 30-mile radius. Everglades, abandoned construction sites, rural areas in Homestead, maybe even the ocean if he had access to a boat." "Do we know if Torres has boating experience?" Webb asked. Reeves checked her notes. "His father owned a small fishing boat when Daniel was growing up. They'd go out on Biscayne Bay. Father died 8 years ago, boat was sold, but Daniel would know how to operate one." "Check every marina," Morrison ordered. "See if anyone matching his description rented or stole a boat between October 14th and 15th. Webb studied the map of Miami-Dade County pinned to the wall, marked with the Morales house at the center. Concentric circles radiated outward, each representing distances Daniel could have traveled in the hours after the disappearance. The Everglades loomed large to the west, millions of acres of sawgrass, mangroves, and swamp where bodies could disappear forever. His phone rang again, this time an unknown number with a 305 area code. "Detective Webb," he answered. "Detective, my name is Father Miguel Castillo. We spoke briefly yesterday. I need to tell you something. Something I should have mentioned before, but I was hoping I was wrong." Webb put the call on speaker. "Go ahead, Father." "About 6 months ago, Daniel came to confession. I cannot break the seal of confession, but I can tell you what happened after. He stayed in the church for hours, praying, crying. When I found him, he was sitting in the dark, and he said something that frightened me. He said, Father, if you lose everything you love, what's the point of anything? I asked if he was considering hurting himself. He said, not myself. The room went cold. I urged him to seek counseling. Father Castillo continued, his voice shaking. I gave him resources, offered to help, but he stopped coming to church shortly after. I saw him occasionally at community events, always with the Morales family, always smiling. I convinced myself he was better. God forgive me. I convinced myself it was nothing. Father, did Daniel ever indicate specific plans or thoughts about harming the Morales family? Not in those words, but he talked about them obsessively, how they were the only people who understood him, how Roberto was the brother he never had, how Elena made him feel like he belonged, and then more recently how they were pulling away, abandoning him. He used that word, abandoning, as if they owed him their presence. When was the last time you saw Daniel? October 12th, Tuesday. He came to the church office asking to speak with me. I was in a meeting and told him to come back later. He never did. Detective, when I saw the news yesterday, I knew it was him, and I'll carry that guilt forever. Webb thanked the father and ended the call. He looked around the room at his colleagues, saw his own thoughts reflected in their faces. They were racing against time now, not to save lives. That hope was fading with each passing hour, but to find bodies, to bring justice, to give the Morales family some semblance of peace, even in death. Reeves, take a team to the Everglades, Webb ordered. Start with popular access points along Tamiami Trail. Martinez, coordinate with Coast Guard on water searches. Rodriguez, work with Fish and Wildlife. They know the remote areas better than anyone. I want aerial surveillance, thermal imaging if we can get it, everything. Where are you going? Morrison asked. Webb grabbed his jacket. To St. Catherine's Church. If Daniel was having a spiritual crisis, if he was seeking absolution or justification, there might be something there. A journal, a note, something he left behind. Marcus, Reeves said quietly, what if we're too late? What if we never find them? It was the question haunting every investigator in the room. Miami was vast, with infinite places to hide bodies. The ocean alone could swallow evidence without a trace. And Daniel Torres had proven himself meticulous, careful, planning weeks in advance. Then we work this case until we do, Webb said firmly. The Morales family deserves that. And somewhere out there, Daniel Torres is either running or hiding. Either way, we find him. We bring him in, and we make him tell us where they are. By late afternoon, Webb stood in St. Catherine's Catholic Church, the smell of incense and old wood surrounding him as Father Castillo led him through the building. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns on stone floors worn smooth by generations of faithful. Daniel used to sit in the back corner, Father Castillo said, pointing to a pew near the confessional, sometimes for hours. I found him here once at 2 a.m. He had a key from his volunteer work. I asked what he was doing. He said he was waiting for God to tell him what to do. Webb examined the pew, searching for anything Daniel might have left behind. Nothing visible, but he'd have forensics check it thoroughly. Father, you mentioned Daniel volunteered here. What did he do? He maintained our computer systems, managed the website, helped with administrative tasks. He had access to most areas of the church, including the basement storage and the rectory office. Can you show me those areas? Father Castillo led Webb through a side door and down narrow stairs into the church basement. A warren of rooms filled with old furniture, boxes of religious materials, and decades of accumulated storage. The air was musty, cool, undisturbed. Daniel organized this entire space last year, Father Castillo explained. Created a cataloging system, made everything accessible. He was down here often. Webb moved through the rooms, letting instinct guide him. In a far corner, behind stacks of folded chairs, he found a small desk with a computer, old, outdated, probably used for inventory management. He powered it on, waited as the ancient machine wheezed to life. The desktop background made his blood run cold. A photo of the Morales family at a church picnic, smiling, happy, unaware. Daniel had been looking at this image every time he worked down here. Webb opened the browser history. Searches dating back months. How to make someone disappear. Dissolving bodies. Everglades disposal sites. Avoiding police detection. Creating new identity. Father, I need you to call my team right now, Webb said, his voice tight. This computer is evidence in a quadruple homicide investigation. Father Castillo's face went pale, but he pulled out his phone with trembling hands. Webb continued clicking through files. A folder labeled Family contained hundreds of photos of the Morales family, many taken from angles suggesting Daniel had been photographing them without their knowledge. Beach trips, school events, grocery shopping through their windows at home. Another folder, Plans. Webb opened it, felt his stomach turn. Documents outlining detailed scenarios for abducting the family, maps of their house with entry and exit points marked, schedules of their daily routines down to the minute. A timeline labeled Final Solution that ended with a single word, disposal. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was premeditated murder, planned with chilling precision by someone who'd studied his victims like a predator studies prey. Webb's phone buzzed. Reeves, found something in the Everglades. You need to see this. GPS coordinates attached. Webb's hands were steady as he forwarded the church computer information to the forensics team, but inside he felt the weight of what they were about to find. 4 lives extinguished by someone they'd trusted, someone they'd welcomed into their home, someone they'd called family. As he drove west toward the Everglades, the Miami skyline receding in his rearview mirror, Detective Marcus Webb knew they were about to enter the darkest phase of this investigation. Finding bodies would bring answers, but no peace. Justice would come eventually, but the Morales family would still be gone. And somewhere, Daniel Torres was living with what he'd done, running from consequences that would inevitably catch up to him. The sun was setting as Webb reached the coordinates, painting the sky blood red over the endless expanse of sawgrass and swamp, a fitting backdrop for the horrors they were about to uncover. Miami-Dade County, Florida, October 16, 2010. The Everglades at dusk possessed an eerie beauty that Detective Marcus Webb had never appreciated until now. As his sedan bumped along the unpaved access road off Tamiami Trail, the setting sun transformed the wetlands into a canvas of amber and crimson, birds circling overhead in formations that seemed almost choreographed. But beauty couldn't mask the darkness this place was about to reveal. Webb's GPS led him 3 miles into the wilderness, past the tourist stops and into the raw, untamed expanse where civilization gave way to nature's indifference. He spotted the cluster of official vehicles first, 2 police SUVs, a forensic van, and Reeves's unmarked sedan parked in a rough semicircle around what appeared to be an old service road, long abandoned and reclaimed by vegetation. Detective Lisa Reeves stood beside a canal speaking with 2 members of the K-9 unit. Their cadaver dog, a German shepherd named Justice, sat alert beside his handler, having already completed his grim task. As Webb approached, Reeves turned and the expression on her face told him everything he needed to know before she spoke a word. "We found disturbed earth about 30 yards from here," she said quietly, leading him along a narrow path marked by evidence flags. The dog hit on it immediately. "Fresh dig, maybe 72 hours old. Ground-penetrating radar confirms there's something down there, multiple somethings." Webb felt his jaw tighten. 72 hours would place the burial right after the disappearance. How deep? 4 to 5 feet. Whoever dug this knew what they were doing. Deep enough to discourage scavengers, shallow enough to complete the work quickly. "We're waiting for the medical examiner and full forensic team before we excavate, but Marcus..." She paused, choosing words carefully. "The radar signature suggests 4 bodies, adult-sized and smaller. 4 bodies. Roberto, Elena, Isabella, Marco, a family erased in a single violent night, buried in the wilderness like they'd never existed." "How did you find this location?" Webb asked. "Process of elimination and some luck. We mapped Daniel's likely routes from Coral Gables. This access road is about 45 minutes away, remote enough for privacy but accessible by vehicle. The white van Kyle saw could easily navigate this terrain. We found tire tracks about a quarter-mile back, fresh impressions consistent with a cargo van. We're casting them now for comparison." Webb walked to the excavation site, a rectangle of disturbed earth approximately 8 feet by 6 feet, surrounded by yellow crime scene tape. Even in the fading light, he could see the difference in soil consistency: darker, looser, recently moved. Whoever had dug this grave had worked fast but not carelessly. The edges were relatively straight, the depth consistent. "What about Daniel Torres?" Webb asked. "Any sightings, any leads?" Reeves shook her head. "It's like he evaporated. No credit card activity, no phone pings, no traffic camera hits. We've got his photo everywhere, news, social media, bolo alerts across 5 states. Someone knows where he is, but so far, no one's talking." Detective James Martinez emerged from the tree line, swatting mosquitoes and looking grim. We found something else. Another 100 yards west, near the water's edge. Burn pile. Recent. Someone torched clothing, plastic materials, paper. It's mostly ash now, but forensics might recover something. Show me, Webb said. They navigated through sawgrass and mud, their shoes squelching with each step, until they reached a blackened circle roughly 4 feet in diameter. The acrid smell of burnt plastic still hung in the air. Martinez pointed to the remnants with a pen. See that melted material? That's what's left of heavy-duty trash bags. And those metal pieces, grommets probably from a tarp. Same items Daniel purchased at Home Depot. Webb crouched beside the burn pile, studying the destruction. This was evidence disposal, the final phase of a carefully executed plan. Burn what could identify the victims, bury what remained, disappear into the vastness of America where a single man with cash and determination could evade detection for years. Bag everything, Webb ordered. Even ash. DNA can survive fire if we're lucky. His phone rang. Dr. Sarah Chen. Detective, I'm en route to your location with the full forensic team. ETA 20 minutes. But I wanted to update you on the blood from Daniel's apartment drain. DNA confirmation came back. It's Roberto Morales. No doubt. Webb closed his eyes, feeling the weight of confirmation. So he killed Roberto first, probably at the apartment, then went back for the rest of the family. That's one theory. Or he injured Roberto during a struggle, took him to the apartment to contain him, then returned for the others. Either way, Roberto's blood in that drain places him at Daniel's residence shortly before or during his death. What about time of death estimates once we excavate the bodies? Given the heat and environmental conditions, I'll be able to narrow it down pretty precisely. The Everglades can accelerate decomposition, but we're only talking about 2 days. There should be enough tissue integrity for a full autopsy on all 4 victims. Webb thanked her and ended the call. 2 days. 48 hours since the Morales family had sat down to dinner in their Coral Gables home, unaware they were sharing a meal with their killer. 48 hours since Daniel Torres had crossed a line from obsession into murder. The forensic team arrived as full darkness descended, their portable lights transforming the wilderness into a stark, clinical scene. Dr. Chen coordinated the excavation with the precision of a surgeon, each layer of earth carefully removed, photographed, documented. Webb stood at the perimeter watching the painstaking process. Reeves joined him, offering a bottle of water he accepted gratefully. How do you think it happened? She asked quietly. The actual murders. Webb had been reconstructing the crime in his mind since they'd found the grave. Based on what we know, the dinner scene, the timeline, the evidence, I think Daniel came to dinner as planned. Maybe the family had decided to have that conversation about boundaries like Roberto told his brother. Maybe Daniel sensed what was coming. At some point during or after the meal, things escalated. The bleach in the kitchen sink, Reeves said. Someone cleaned up blood. Right. I think Roberto confronted Daniel, maybe asked him to leave. Fight breaks out. Daniel has a weapon, knife probably given the close quarters and lack of gunshot reports from neighbors. He stabs Roberto, possibly multiple times. Panic sets in. He knows he's crossed a point of no return. So he kills the rest of the family to eliminate witnesses. Webb nodded grimly. Elena, Isabella, Marco, they were never targets. They were collateral damage. He couldn't leave them alive to identify him. The family that had shown him nothing but kindness became obstacles to his escape. Jesus, Reeves whispered. How does someone do that? How does friendship turn into that kind of violence? It wasn't friendship, not really. Not for Daniel. It was ownership. When Roberto tried to establish boundaries, Daniel interpreted it as betrayal. In his mind, they owed him their loyalty, their time, their lives. When they tried to pull away, he'd rather see them dead than gone. Detective Webb, Dr. Chen's voice cut through the night. We've hit something. Webb and Reeves hurried to the excavation site. Portable lights illuminated the pit, now 4 feet deep. At the bottom, partially exposed, was what appeared to be a blue tarp, the kind Daniel had purchased from Home Depot. Everyone stop, Dr. Chen ordered. We photograph everything from here. The team documented the tarp's position, angle, and condition. Then, with gloves and meticulous care, they began to peel it back. The smell hit immediately. Decomposition accelerated by heat and humidity, unmistakable and overwhelming. Several officers stepped back, fighting nausea. Beneath the tarp lay the first body, wrapped in black plastic trash bags secured with duct tape. Adult-sized, male from the build. Dr. Chen made a small incision in the plastic, peered inside, then looked up at Webb with confirmation in her eyes. "Roberto Morales," she said. "Multiple stab wounds visible on the torso. I count at least 7 entry points. This was frenzied, personal." They continued excavating. A second body beside the first, adult female, smaller frame, Elena Morales. Then 2 more, heartbreakingly smaller, Isabella and Marco, their young lives cut short by a man they'd called uncle. Webb turned away, needing a moment. He'd seen death before countless times, but the murder of children never became easier. 17 and 14 years old, their futures stolen by someone who claimed to love them. "We'll need dental records for official identification," Dr. Chen said, her professional demeanor cracking slightly. "But based on physical descriptions and clothing remnants, I'm confident this is the Morales family. All 4 victims." "Cause of death?" Webb asked, his voice hoarse. "Preliminary, and I stress this is preliminary pending full autopsy, appears to be sharp force trauma. Multiple stab wounds on all 4 victims. The attack was sustained and vicious. Roberto has defensive wounds on his hands and forearms, consistent with attempting to protect himself, and possibly his family. The others." She paused, swallowing hard. "The others show fewer defensive wounds. They may have been incapacitated quickly or were killed while fleeing." Webb's phone buzzed with a text from Lieutenant Morrison. "Press is going crazy. Need update for morning briefing. Do we have confirmation?" He typed back. 4 bodies recovered. Believed to be Morales family. Official ID pending. This is now a quadruple homicide investigation. The response came immediately. "Holy God. Find Daniel Torres. Whatever it takes." As the forensic team continued their grim work, carefully extracting and cataloging each body, Webb walked back to his car and sat in the driver's seat, door open, staring out at the Everglades. Somewhere in this vast country, Daniel Torres was eating, sleeping, breathing, while the family he'd murdered lay in body bags awaiting transport to the medical examiner's office. Reeves approached, leaning against the car. "What are you thinking? That he's not done running? He's planned this too carefully, liquidated his assets, created a head start. He could be anywhere. Mexico, Canada, holed up in some small town under a fake name. Without financial footprints or electronic traces, he's a ghost." "We'll find him," Reeves said with conviction. "Someone always makes a mistake. He'll surface eventually. Eventually might be years from now. Decades even. Then we work the case for decades. Marcus, you know as well as I do, murderers who run can't help themselves. They need to feel safe, normal. They settle somewhere, establish routines, let their guard down. And when they do, we'll be there." Webb wanted to believe her, but he'd seen cases go cold before, watched killers disappear into society's cracks and never resurface. The thought of Daniel Torres living free while the Morales family decomposed in a Miami morgue made his blood boil. His phone rang. A blocked number. He answered warily. "Detective Webb." "Detective." The voice was male, quiet and terrifyingly familiar. Webb's hand shot out, signaling frantically to Reeves. "I know you found them. I've been watching the news." "Daniel Torres," Webb said, forcing his voice to remain steady. Reeves was already on her radio, calling for a trace. "Where are you?" "Somewhere you'll never find me. I'm calling because I need you to understand. I need someone to understand. Then help me understand. Tell me what happened that night." A long pause, filled with static and what might have been traffic noise. Daniel was on a payphone, smart enough not to use a traceable cell. "Roberto was going to cut me out," Daniel said, his voice breaking. "After everything I did for them. After I saved them, helped them, loved them like my own blood. He said I was too involved, that I needed to find my own life, like they weren't my life, like I hadn't given up everything for them." "So you killed him," Webb said flatly. "It was an accident. We argued, he pushed me, I had a knife from cutting vegetables for dinner, it just happened. And then Elena screamed and I panicked, I couldn't think, couldn't breathe. Everything I'd built with them was falling apart and I made it stop. You made it stop by murdering a woman and 2 children. They would have told, don't you see? I couldn't go to prison, I couldn't lose my freedom. So I did what I had to do. I ended it quickly for them. They didn't suffer much." Webb felt rage building, hot and dangerous. "Isabella was 17 years old. Marco was 14. You stabbed children to death, Daniel. There's no justification for that. No explanation that makes it anything other than what it is. Evil." "I'm not evil." Daniel's voice rose, panic creeping in. "I'm not the monster you think I am. I loved them. I still love them, but they forced my hand. They made me choose between them and my survival. Then choose again now. Turn yourself in. Face what you've done. Give the Morales family the dignity of justice." Daniel laughed, a hollow, broken sound. "Justice? There's no justice for me. Only a life sentence or death row. I'd rather take my chances out here." "We will find you," Webb promised. "Maybe not today, maybe not this year, but eventually you'll slip up. You'll get comfortable. And when you do, I'll be there. We'll see, Detective. In the meantime, you tell their family. Tell Roberto's brother in Venezuela, I'm sorry. I never wanted any of this. They pushed me to it. They're as responsible as I am." The line went dead. Webb slammed his hand on the steering wheel, cursing. Reeves ran up, breathless. "Did we get the trace?" "Payphone in Tallahassee, already checked by local PD. He was gone before they arrived, but Lisa, he's following the news. He knows we found the bodies. And he's not remorseful. He's justifying. Sociopathic narcissism," Reeves said. "Classic profile. He genuinely believes he's the victim here." Webb looked back at the excavation site where body bags were being loaded into the medical examiner's van. 4 lives reduced to evidence. A family destroyed by a man who confused love with possession, friendship with ownership. "Get the recording of that call to the FBI," Webb ordered. "Voice analysis, background noise, anything that might give us a location. And I want his face on every news channel, every website, every telephone pole from here to Alaska. Someone knows where Daniel Torres is, and we're going to find out who." As the night deepened and the grim work continued, Detective Marcus Webb made a silent promise to the Morales family. Their deaths would not be in vain. Daniel Torres would be found. Justice would be served, no matter how long it took. But what Webb couldn't know, what none of them could know, was that it would take 14 years. 14 years of dead ends and false leads. Of Daniel Torres becoming a ghost story, a cautionary tale. A case file gathering dust in storage. 14 years until renovation work on an abandoned property would crack open the truth and finally reveal where Daniel Torres had been hiding all along. But that revelation was still years away, waiting in the darkness like the bodies had waited in the Everglades. Silent, patient, inevitable. Miami, Florida, November 2010 to December 2023. The official autopsies confirmed what Detective Marcus Webb already knew in his bones. Roberto Morales died from 11 stab wounds to the chest and abdomen, several penetrating vital organs. Elena Morales suffered 9 stab wounds, concentrated in her back and neck. She'd been running, trying to escape. Isabella Morales had 6 wounds, including one that severed her carotid artery. Marco Morales, the youngest, had been stabbed 4 times in the chest. The medical examiner estimated the entire family was dead within 15 minutes of the first attack. Time of death, October 14th, 2010, between 8:00 p.m. and 9:00 p.m. The funerals were held at St. Catherine's Catholic Church on a gray November morning, with over 300 people in attendance. The Venezuelan community rallied around Carlos Morales, who'd flown from Caracas to claim his brother's family and bring them home to rest. Webb attended in plain clothes, standing in the back, watching faces for any sign of Daniel Torres. Killers sometimes couldn't resist attending their victims' services. Daniel didn't show. Father Miguel Castillo delivered a eulogy that reduced the congregation to tears, speaking of a family that had embodied hope, hard work, and faith. He didn't mention the man who'd murdered them, though his name hung in the air like smoke, unspoken but omnipresent. After the service, Carlos Morales approached Webb with red-rimmed eyes and a handshake that trembled. "Promise me," Carlos said in heavily accented English. "Promise me you find him." Webb had promised. He'd meant it with every fiber of his being. But promises, he would learn, were easier to make than keep. December 2010. The investigation consumed Webb's life. He worked 18-hour days, following every lead, chasing every shadow. The FBI joined the manhunt, adding federal resources and expertise. Daniel Torres' photo appeared on America's Most Wanted, featured on the show's November 15th episode. Tips poured in, hundreds of them, from across the country. Daniel Torres had been spotted in Seattle, working at a coffee shop. Investigation revealed a man who looked similar but was actually a local barista named David Thompson. Daniel Torres was living in a compound in Montana with anti-government extremists. FBI raid found the compound, found extremists, but no Daniel Torres. Daniel Torres had been seen boarding a bus to Mexico City. Mexican authorities checked, found nothing. Each lead consumed time and resources.